Hi everyone, it's Mojax and I'm in the lab today taking a look at this little thing. This is the Traktor Kontrol S2 Mark II. Now, a little while back I took a brief overview of the Kontrol S4 Mark II, which is the bigger one, does 4 decks, got 4 channels in the middle, does DVS through your Traktor Scratch, you can input turntables and so on into it. This is a slightly different beast. Like the old S2, it's got no inputs apart from a mic input when you're using it with your laptop, but it does have balanced outputs, it does have a booth output, and so it is a professional level bit of kit, but it's a bit more portable and a little bit more simple and stripped down if you don't need 4 decks. Now, one thing that you can do is control remix decks from it in Traktor Pro on your computer. So I think really the killer for this, if you're going to use this with your computer, with your Mac or your PC, is to hook it up with a Control F1 on the side as well. And then you've got 2 main decks to control, and you've got full control of 2 remix decks as well. You can control all the levels from the actual S2 controller itself. So I think that's probably the killer app for this. But the other killer app is the new feature, which is the iOS support. So this thing now works with iPad and iPhone. One little caveat, at this time it doesn't work with iOS 7. Now that is something that, you know, Native Instruments will sort out. There's no question about that. It will get sorted, it will work. But right now it means I'm quite lucky in that I've got my iPad 2 here and that's still on iOS 6, so I can still use that for this demo today. So rather than do like 2 separate bits of demo showing you with the computer and with the iPad, I'm just going to show you with the iPad, and where there are differences in the software and how it works with the hardware, I'll point those out to you as we go through. So let's just take a look around the controller itself first of all. On the front here we've got the 6.35mm headphone jack on the front. We've got Q volume and Q mix knobs, so you can go between the Q signal and the master, and those push in and out, and so you can push them away when you want to put it in a bag and travel with it and so on. You've got the microphone engage on the front there as well. The microphone doesn't work with iOS, it only works on the computer. Your microphone input there on the back with its own level control, and you've got separate level control for your booth output and so on as well. You've also got then the power supply. It comes with a power supply in the box. You are going to want that power supply if you're using it with iOS. It won't work otherwise. It is bus powered when you're using it with your computer, so you don't need the power supply necessarily when you're using it with your computer. Now, we've got the standard USB port there as well on the back, and that one will run obviously into your computer, but it also comes in the box with the 30-pin iOS connector. It will work with the lightning adapter as well, so you can plug it into your iOS device and it will charge your iOS device as well. So I'm going to plug that into this, and what we'll see is straight away it should say, come up and it will say Traktor DJ would like to communicate with the S2 Mark II, allow, and there we go. It is now opening up Traktor DJ. And we should see everything is mapped straight away, and it all just works. Jog wheels, there we go, all running. So I'm just going to fire up the recording on the Traktor DJ app, and there we go. So now let's go through everything on the unit. So, yep, 2 channels in the middle, low, mid, and high EQs. You've got nice stiff up faders, loose cross fader. That's the standard vibe these days. Then we move to the decks themselves. We've got the transport controls here. You've got your play and pause button. The shift function for that, if you hold down shift, you've got the key lock, and that will turn the key lock on and off like so. So that will turn the key lock off. Do it again, turn the key lock back on again. You've got the Q button, will set your temp Q. You can jump back to that. And then you can also hold shift on that, that will take you back to the beginning of the track. Then we've got the sync button, so you can turn sync on and off. Now that's the thing with this, is that you've got individual pitch controls which are accessible from the unit, which means you can totally mix manually now with Traktor DJ when you're using it with the Kontrol S2. You can't do that without this controller basically, or the S4 Mark II. You just can't do it. So that's a really useful way of just expanding out the functionality of the iOS app and making it much more useful for a lot more, you know, situations. And if you're playing stuff that isn't syncable, you know, stuff like funk and disco and that sort of thing, you can just turn sync off, you can just mix it manually, you can just drop stuff in at its right tempo, whatever you want to do. It gives you a lot more flexibility than you had before. And that one, now on the computer, when you're using it with a computer, that is shift and the sync button will choose the tempo master for sync. But on the actual S2 with the iPad, what it puts you into, you hold shift and sync, and that will put you into the beat grid mode. And so I'm just going to unlock that because I've locked it. And when you're in the beat grid mode, you can just adjust the actual beat grid with the jog wheels in the middle there. And you can do it while the track's playing as well. You don't have to do it when it's paused. And you can line that up perfectly as you go on, and you can go through the track and actually set which is the downbeat as well as you go through. So we can just go back to the beginning. There we go. Just wind it right back. So you can choose exactly where the downbeat, the number 1, is going to sit, and you can get those grids lined up just perfectly. It does have the standard sort of restriction of Traktor's gridding, in that you can't have a flexible grid. You know, if a track changes tempo over time, you can't do anything about that. It's tough, basically. But there we go. So to come out of that mode, we're back into it now. We've got a perfectly beat gridded track, and so that will sync really nicely with whatever we want to use. Up above that, we've got the flux mode, which will let you jump into your cues. It will let you do loops. Just going to set another couple of key points, go into flux mode. And that's the same on both iOS and on the computer. Come out of flux mode, we've then got the actual cue point. So yeah, these are the cue point buttons. You can set them on the fly. You can also, they'll be reflected, the colours will be reflected. So if you've got a beat grid cue point, it'll be white. If you've got a blue one, it's a regular cue point. If you've got a yellow one, it's a load cue point, and so on. And you can easily access those from here. You can also delete them just by hitting that. And if you go into a loop, these are the loop encoders up here. So we've got the loop encoder, we can set the size. You can see over there, we're changing the size there. So I'm going to put a 4-beat loop in, and I can actually save that as a loop. So now come out of that and it will jump to that loop when I press it, as is standard in Traktor across iOS and computers as well. You've also got your manual loops. You can set a manual loop in and out. You can adjust the size of that once it's set as well. And just pushing that loop encoder down will turn the loop on and off for you. Then we've got the loop move over here. You can basically move the loop back and forth in the track as you want. And then this one as well, when you push it down, what this will do on iOS, it will put you into the, basically the freeze mode is what they call it. It's a lot like the slicer in Traktor DJ. So you can jump to different beat lengths. And if you actually do that within a loop, you can actually change, we'll do that. So set a loop on there, put a 2-beat loop on, or a 1-beat even. Now we're going to go into the freeze mode. You can see we've got 4 spread right across very quickly. So you can really get granular with that. You can really get involved with that freeze mode, which is a little bit trickier when you're just using the touchscreen. A lot of this stuff you can do with the touchscreen, but you know, it's great to have that option to do it all separately. So let's move on up then. We've got the jog wheel itself. Works really nicely, as you would expect. And you can pitch bend with the outside, and you can scratch with the top. Nice and simple, like so. We've got the effects section up the top there. I'm just going to open up the effects panel so you can actually see what's going on. So what we're going to do, open the effects panel up there. You can see up here now we've got the 3 different effects. You can drop down and choose which ones you want. So let's put the gator on there, and all we do, that knob turns it on. So you've got the buttons that turn it on. Each one has a parameter, and the dry and wet is controlled with this one on the left hand side. And you can have 2 at once, and if you want all 3 at once, you can actually just hit shift and this one here, and that will turn all 3 on. You can do the dry and wet for all 3 at once. You can really chain those effects in a big old combo, and it works really nicely. Like so. Now we assign the effects. Basically, we can open up the effects panel with that button there. So we can do that like so, and we put that away, and we can actually do the right hand one. Obviously on the computer that's going to do effects to effects number 1 and effects 2, but on here that will also open up. Then you've got the equalizer, you can see what we're doing with that, and the volume you can see on the screen, but also you've got the filter. Now on the iOS you've got, this one is a filter by default. And then if you hold shift, it does a gain for the track. Whereas on the computer that is gain by default and filter with the shift. There you've got your main output level in the middle there, and we're coming into the middle section. We've got the remix deck. So the remix deck section does nothing on the iOS at all because you've only got the 2 decks, that's it. But on the computer, you've got that will control the level of decks C and D, and you can assign these controls here. So these pads will do the top 4 remix slots, and you can basically assign those and control them from this without the F1. But that's what I mean. The killer really is you've got the extra channels running into the controller there. So if you've got an F1 alongside on your computer, then you've got full remix deck control of 2 remix decks, plus you've got the 2 main decks, and that is a pretty powerful combination. That's what I've been digging when I've been playing with this in the studio. That's really what I'm feeling. It works really, really well. Browsing is very simply taken care of with this browse knob in the middle. You can push the button in and move around. You don't even have to push it in. You can actually, you can just move it and it'll move you through your tracks there and select what you want. Select A or B with the buttons there. Nice and simple. Works the same on the computer as well. Then it's all pretty much duplicated on the right hand side. So that is the Kontrol S2 Mark II. You know, it's simple really, and that's great. You know, that's not a dismissal of it at all. It's nice and easy to use. It's got only 2 channels to really worry about. Works great with the iPad. You know, it is now feasible for you to turn up with an iPad with enough storage, and you could do a gig with this easily. This and your iPad running together. Your iPad's going to charge. It's not going to run out of battery. It's going to sound just as good as anything else because it's a good audio interface in here. It's amazing really what you could do with that, such a small combination, and just fantastic. I would suggest, although you can use it with the iPhone, my suggestion would be stick to an iPad. An iPad mini, you know, the new iPad mini with Retina is going to be hopefully an amazing iPad. That sort of thing is what you really want, because you need to be able to see what's going on. If you're DJing with software, you need to see what's happening when you're playing. And, you know, ultimately, yeah, you don't want to be staring at a screen all night, but you need to have everything on the screen easily visible to you. And Traktor does make good use of that screen real estate on the iPhone, but no, I would still want an iPad myself. So there you go. It's on sale now. I think it's around about £400 here in the UK, quite significantly cheaper than the Kontrol S4 Mark II. So really do think about that combo, the F1 and the S2 Mark II. Have a think on that, because that will still come in cheaper than an S4 Mark II. So unless you really want to hook up and do timecode vinyl or timecode CDs or whatever with it, I've got to say this is probably it. Comes with a full version of Traktor Pro in the box, and also Traktor DJ has been free before. It might be on sale again, but if you haven't picked it up when it's free, you're crazy, because it's real good. So there we go, that's my look at the Kontrol S2 Mark II. Thank you very much for watching. For more tutorials, walkthroughs and so on, please take a look at my channel and subscribe. It's Mojax VDJ on YouTube. Thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye.